Good morning. Welcome in on a Tuesday. This is 5 Clubs on Golf Channel, and we hope you listen as well if you're getting in the car, on the PGA Tour Radio Network on Sirius XM Channel 92. This program is always brought to you by Century Insurance, right by you. They are invested in such good things in the game of golf, their relationship with the First Tee, as well as the United States Golf Association. They sponsor the first event on the PGA Tour schedule out there in Maui. Also, our North Carolina-based companies, Golf Pride, when it comes to grips, all the grips, the Align Max, their new grip, the reverse taper putter grips, they're always advancing technology. That is why players at every level trust Golf Pride more than any grip. Peter Millar, everything I wear, including this performance hoodie today, is Peter Millar. It's all I've worn for 15 years. Luxury style, refining it for more than 2 decades. And of course, Pinehurst, the cradle of American golf. And I know it's that time of the year. It is springtime. Just the thought of going there, all that they have to offer on the course and off the Pinehurst Resort, there's always a good reason and a good time to be there. All right, this hour, we're going to have a teenager on this program. He's not your ordinary garden variety teenager. He is a high-achieving, prodigious winning teenager in the game of golf, and that is Miles Russell. Off of his latest win on Saturday, he is the youngest player of the year in AJGA history. He is also the guy who's the youngest player to ever make a cut, and he actually finished tied for 20th in a Korn Ferry Tour event last year. As Kevin, who's beyond this camera, is shaking his head going, that can't all be true. It's all true. Well, Miles Russell is going to be joining me here in about 15 minutes because he's on a very interesting path. It's a path of extraordinary high achievement, and he is somebody who, when you look at the future, you know, you kind of pause when you go, well, he's a sure thing, she's a sure thing. Those are dangerous propositions, but he's doing extraordinary things at a young age. Looking forward to having a conversation with him. And Chris Solomon, speaking of high achieving, he helped create an outfit, No Laying Up, that does as much work when it comes to not only covering golf, but examining all aspects of golf, seeing new places, going all over the world, having conversations with players, not only at the elite level, but players at every level. No Laying Up is a success story. There are not many quite like it. These are 4 guys who came together, went to school together, love golf, just golf nerds, had jobs and said, you know what, I don't know about this job. Let's do something different. They've done something very different, and he participated in the Creator Classic at the Players. I know he had a great time, but I'm interested in his thoughts on a lot of things. So those guys are coming up. Looking forward to that. But let me start with something, and I'm not getting ready to launch into what I'm going to talk about here because I'm having somebody who's a teenager on. I don't want anybody to interpret this as being some type of professorial sermon about what certain people should do. I got enough trouble trying to figure out what's best for me. I don't really give advice or guidance on you should do that and you should do that. No, everybody has their own path. You're running your own race. You're running not necessarily against other people, even though it's hard at times not to find yourself competing and comparing. But as you've heard me say, not often, but enough here, comparison is the thief of joy. Just keep running, whatever pace you want to choose. But what I want to talk about is something that, as we start a new week and tournaments are being conducted all over the place, we're seeing high achievement at younger and younger ages. And I think there are a lot of reasons as to why that's happening. Part of it is that there is more offered to kids at a younger age now than we've seen. I'm talking about advanced analytics and advanced performance and advanced instruction and the way that you can condition yourself to get ahead in the game. But one of the things that has been true about history, and not necessarily 70, 80, 90 years ago when guys like Snead and Hogan and Nelson didn't necessarily have a college path. There wasn't some type of developed college path for kids who were born as they were in 1912 to go off, 15, 16, 17 years later. Yes, Bob Jones went the college route, but he was winning national championships at a very, very young age. Skipping steps is not something that the best players of all time have done. And let's start where you kind of think the modern age began. Arnold Palmer won the U.S. Amateur in 1954, and yes, he left Wake Forest, and there was extenuating circumstances around him leaving. He dealt with the tragic loss of his best friend, and he was bewildered and found himself, my gosh, jolted by something really, really challenging at a very, very young life. But he didn't necessarily skip the step of winning at the amateur level, which he did, and then became a prolific winner at the professional level, and obviously winning that first major championship 4 years after winning the U.S. Amateur. Consider the path of Jack Nicklaus, somebody who played all sports. That's another thing, and again, I'm not telling anybody what they should do, but I lean on the advice and kind of the guidance of people who did it at the truly highest level. And John McEnroe is a great example of this. John was an elite soccer player. And I honestly think that his athleticism, his artistry on a tennis court was a reflection of him doing other things at a young age. And then he narrowed his focus. And he's got a teaching academy. And I had a very good friend, Brian Kiger. His son was very good at many, many things, Matt Kiger. And John McEnroe advised him, no. Have him keep doing all of those things, and he can apply the athleticism, the intuition, and the dexterity that he's getting from soccer and basketball and baseball, eventually when he does narrow his focus to tennis, which he did, and played at the highest level at the University of North Carolina. Roger Federer is another great example. His parents were advised by his instructors, his tennis instructors, when he was very young because he was beating all the kids of his age. And the instructor said, we really want Roger to kind of ramp up to another level. And you know what his parents' reply was to those instructors? We'll ask Roger what he thinks. They let the kid decide. And you know what Roger's answer was? No, if I ramp up to play with these older kids, it's going to deprive me of kicking the soccer ball with my real buddies. So when the time came, he narrowed his focus. And if you look at history, Jack Nicklaus, Tiger Woods, and we're talking about the greatest of all time, but even guys like Seve. Seve didn't have a college path, but Seve Ballesteros, when he finished second in 1976 at the Open Championship to Johnny Miller, you know what he did a couple weeks later? He won by 8 shots on the European Tour. Rory McIlroy, another one, who thought for a period maybe he would play college golf at, of all places, East Tennessee State. That obviously didn't happen. He was a low amateur at the 2007 Open Championship, turned professional, won on what is now the DP World Tour, European Tour in Dubai at 19. Sergio Garcia won as a teenager as well at the Irish Open at the age of 19. Jordan Spieth, a prolific winner at the junior level, a multiple-time junior amateur champion, then won at 19 at the John Deere. And even though Scottie Scheffler took a little bit longer, Scottie had a different college experience than Jordan Spieth. Jordan went for 1 year, turned professional in 2013 with no status anywhere, and by the middle of that year, he was a winner because he had won a lot before at the junior level, at the college level, in a finite amount of time at the University of Texas. History has shown that generational greatness is usually a reflection, or it's a byproduct of players who refine the skill that is the most important one. And for all the advanced analytics and data that we have now in the game, and I love it all, guys like Ron Kloss and Andy Lack and the kind of information they're producing on a week-to-week basis for people who may want to dabble in the wagering pool. But those types of data that also is something that elite players are applying as well, all that stuff is very, very useful, and I think it's great stuff. And it's very, very interesting. But you know what the most important refined data point there is? How often did you win? And every great player at every level usually figures out, and Shane Ryan said this yesterday, that playing well under pressure is contagious. So is playing poorly under pressure. That can be contagious. So players like Scottie Scheffler won a zillion junior golf tournaments, won the junior amateur himself, won the junior invitational. that the aforementioned Miles Russell won on Saturday. He won that too. John Rahm won 11 times at Arizona State. Phil Mickelson won 16 times. Winning begets winning. Skipping steps for all that Luke Clanton has done to earn a tour card when he decides to cash that chip. You know what he's doing in the interim while also finishing in the top 25 on PGA Tour events? He's winning college events, because that skill, the most refined skill that is also at the same time the most elusive, is the one that separates good players from generationally great players. All right, we're going to take a break. Speaking of winning, he does a lot of it. And he's 16 years of age, and he just won what a lot of people think is the best junior event in the world. I happen to agree that it is. For all the great junior events that are out there, Miles Russell, you'll see him soon enough in a Korn Ferry Tour event that he played in last year. He also played in the Rocket Mortgage on the PGA Tour and almost made the cut. We'll talk about his experience this past week at Sage Valley, what's ahead for him as he heads into the spring and summertime, and a little bit later on, Chris Solomon, the founder, the visionary of No Laying Up, and what they have built, and also his thoughts on a lot of things going on in the industry of golf. It's great to have you with us on this Tuesday on 5 Clubs on Golf Channel and on the PGA Tour Radio Network, Channel 92 on Sirius XM. Back right after this. Welcome back into 5 Clubs here on Golf Channel. You can also listen on the PGA Tour Radio Network, Channel 92 on Sirius XM. This segment is brought to you by Golf Pride. All players at every level trust Golf Pride more than any grip in the world. All right, joining me now, he was the AJGA Player of the Year. He just won what many people believe is the best event in junior golf, the Junior Invitational at Sage Valley. He's going to play in an event he played in on the Korn Ferry Tour last year, coming up in a couple of weeks. About a month from now, he finished tied for 20th in that. I'm speaking, of course, of Miles Russell. Thank you for starting your day with me. How you doing this morning?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing great. Let's start with this week that just went by. It's an unusual week. I was at that event for a number of years. It's special, staying on the property. It's a smaller field. It's more intimate. What is the best part about that particular event?
There's so many best parts to it. The golf course is awesome. It's definitely the best one we get to play. And then you just get to hang out with all your buddies. I mean, there's not really a better week out there. And then the staff is just so nice. If you need something, you can get it. I don't know, they treat you so well, and it's definitely the best event we get to play.
Yeah, like you said, to be there on campus, to share all the time together with people. But at the same time, Miles, I think it might be distracting. It's like, my gosh, there's so many things we can do. We can go fishing. Obviously the food is off the charts great. Is it easier to concentrate in a week like that where you're literally all confined together, or are there challenges associated with all the trappings that come with the Junior Invitational?
It's definitely probably a little tougher because, I mean, you have a par 3 course, I'd say 50 yards from your cottage. That's open until 10 o'clock at night, when usually that's your time to recover and get ready for the next day. So you got to kind of pick your battles of what you want to do, and is it worth doing? Is it worth having that good time to maybe sacrifice something that next day? But no, I mean, what I was able to do is I was able to do everything I wanted to do earlier in the week, so I didn't have to do go and play the par 3 course on Tuesday night, getting ready for Wednesday. Like, that just didn't make sense. So I was able to get everything done beforehand.
Your play over the course of 4 rounds, very, very consistent. Let's talk specifically about the final day. I think contention is what you all strive to get into. And then you get in that environment, and how do you respond to it? What were you most proud about with respect to the things that you executed on Saturday in that final round?
I really just tried to hang in there. Joshua and Jackson, they're playing great golf, and they've been playing great golf all week. And I was just kind of waiting for my time to maybe make a putt, because I didn't make many putts on Saturday. But I was just waiting kind of for that one shot to click and kind of get the momentum going my way, which it could have never happened, but fortunately it did there on, I'd say, the 14th hole. Kind of just started gaining a little momentum and kind of just rode it into the house.
The path that you've been on, for people who've spent any time learning about it, look, you were taken to the range by I think your dad and your grandfather. You went through a bucket of balls in apparently like 2.5, 3 minutes, and there was something about it that got to you. But specifically, Miles, chipping, shots around the green. Why do you think that you were particularly enamored by the exercise of hitting shots that are around the green and close to the hole?
I don't know. I'd say I'm pretty creative when it comes to kind of short game and putting. So I think it's just something I like to do. I don't know. I just don't get bored around the chipping green, especially if it's a nice chipping green and everything's just perfect around it. It's probably one of the funnest things in the world for me.
There's a quote in an article. Your dad said that I knew he liked golf when he would sit down next to me and I'm watching Golf Central and he's not off watching cartoons. What was it about golf that you were curious about at such a tender age?
Honestly, I don't even know. I was so little, I hardly remember it. But I don't know. There's just something to it. And watching them hit the ball, I mean, it just seemed cool at the time, and I'm just happy I'm able to play.
The path you're on, with all the accomplishments you've already had, what are the things that you're focused on now, as far as the balance of school, but also the competition of junior golf, but also the ability at times to play a professional event or two? How are you and your parents navigating all of that?
Well, I do homeschool, so that helps out a lot, because otherwise you miss a lot of school. But really, I think I just have a great team of guys around me, and even the guys I just play at home with, I mean, they keep everything light. They just keep it fun, which is kind of the main goal, and I'm just enjoying what's going on.
When you look out at professional events like you did last year, what was the most rewarding aspect of playing that first Korn Ferry Tour event, of which you're going to do it again in about a month's time?
I think I learned a lot. I learned kind of the way they go about things and the way they do things. Even just little things, the way they practice, what they practice in practice rounds. I'd say that definitely helped kind of the summer and the fall and even the spring. Like, I've just kind of started to use what I've learned there, and I think it's working. But I can't wait till I think we're just about a month out, and can't wait for it.
Yeah, no question about it. I was asking about your parents during the break, your dad, Joe, your mom, Kelly. Your dad doesn't play a lot of golf, but you said he's a good player. Your mom used to be a gymnast. When did you know that you were a competitive person? Because you can be as skilled as anybody, which you clearly are, but you have to have innate competitive desire. When did you know you were a competitive person?
I don't know. I was probably really little. I mean, I always liked playing, doing something. Could never sit still, whether it was throwing a football or baseball when I was little. I mean, I'd sit in this hallway with my dad, and we'd throw this little hacky sack, like, baseball thing for hours. I don't know. I've always been competitive. I've always liked to do well in things, and I think that's just something. If you want to do well, I think you kind of have to be competitive.
Let me ask you about goal setting, and specifically something like a Walker Cup. You're a high school kid. That's not something that a lot of high school kids get to experience. Is the Walker Cup a priority for you? Is it a big goal?
For sure. To play in something that big is a goal, no matter how old you are, I'd say. But whenever you get to represent your country in something like that, doing the thing you love, there's just nothing better.
All right, let me get you out of here with 5 to go. These are 5 quick questions for Miles Russell, and let's get back to Sage Valley here for a minute, because this will not be easy to answer. What is the best item on the Sage Valley menu? Because every single thing you look at, you go, I want that, I want that, I want that. What's your favorite thing?
I think the omelets in the morning were pretty good. There's so many things, but I think I gotta go with the omelets.
Okay, are you a fried pickle kind of guy? Because that's something they place like a mound of those on your table before you even order lunch, and I could eat 1,000 of them. Do you like fried pickles?
I do. I'll eat my fair share.
All right, what was the first tour event or major men's golf event that you recall watching on television? Do you have a memory of the first golf tournament you saw on TV?
No, it'd probably be something like TPC though, just because it's local.
And you've gone every year since you were a little kid to the Players.
Yeah, I've gone every year since I was 3. So
okay,
that's probably the one. So
you had to have watched Tiger win the Masters in 2019. You have to remember that, right? Okay.
Yeah. I'd say I think the first one I remember on TV is probably Jordan Spieth Masters.
Okay, 2015.
I think that 2015. Yeah.
Okay, so you were 6 years old. All right, your parents' favorite music or genre. Do your parents like music? And if they do you have to listen to their music in the house? They
do. I don't know. They're not that. We all listen to the same music, so it works out.
Which is what? What do you listen to?
Country music.
Oh, you like country music?
Country music.
All right. The best shot that you've ever seen struck, not by you, by somebody else. What's the best shot you've ever seen?
There was a practice round at President's Cup. We were up there for Junior President's Cup, and I was watching Scotty, and he was in these right trees. I don't know what hole, but it was thick rough, and there's like a tree on the left, overhanging limbs, and there's people right, like very close right. I'm like, oh, the last thing I would do is go and hit that shot. And he had to kind of punch it through this little window, and I mean, I have a video of it, and it just came out so perfectly, and it just hit it over the green and ended up chipping it in. But I mean, it was definitely a shot I don't want to have to try to hit. And if I were hitting it, those people would be a lot farther away.
That's a good one. All right, last thing. The tour player who possesses some skill or strength that you look at and you admire, who's got something that you would like to possess?
How about Jordan Spieth's wedges? His short game, it's just so good.
It's a very good answer. I honestly, the first time I saw him chip and hit short pitches around the green, this was 2014, so it was right after he finished second at the Masters. It was spooky. Like everything looked like it was going in. I appreciate you taking the time to do this. Congratulations on a huge win, being the recipient of the gold jacket, winning the Junior Invitational at Sage Valley. Most importantly, I hope you enjoy the whole path, especially what you got right in front of you. Have a great spring and summer. Thank you for doing this.
Thank you. Have a good one.
All right, you too. Miles Russell, again, the #1 junior golfer on the boys' side in the world. We take a break here. Chris Solomon's going to join me from No Laying Up. Get his thoughts on a number of things, including the Creator Classic, which he participated in, and also some things going on as it relates to the PGA Tour, television-wise and moving forward as it relates to live in the Public Investment Fund of Saudi Arabia. Nice to have you with us. It's a Tuesday edition of 5 Clubs. We're back right after this. It's the bottom of the hour here on this Tuesday on 5 Clubs on Golf Channel. You can also listen on the PGA Tour Radio Network on Sirius XM Channel 92. This segment brought to you by Peter Millar, for more than 2 decades, refining luxury style comfort. And this performance hoodie that I'm wearing, you can have it. You can have anything that I'm wearing because all that I wear and have for 15 years is Peter Millar. All right, joining me now is somebody who has built something along with his band of brothers that is one of the most viable, important entities in the ecosystem of golf, and that, of course, is no laying up. Chris Solomon is who I'm referring to. And as I bring him on, and as I've just exited Miles Russell, and Solly, knowing that you guys were in a U.S. Open local qualifier together, reminds me of a scene from the movie Bad Words with Jason Bateman. Did you ever see that movie?
I don't think I have. And when you said viable there for a second, I thought you were going to say vile, and I was like, okay, all right, we're going to have some fun here. That would have worked as well. But thanks for having me.
No, I would never say that. First of all, the premise of that movie is that there's a middle-aged man who's trying to win spelling bees against kids. So I could just see you leaving the practice range, going to the first tee of your U.S. Open local, and there's this was, how long ago was this? What was he, like 12 years old, 13?
I think he was 13. I think this was 2 years ago, and I think the video lives on our YouTube channel. I had a case of the lefts, and we about halfway through, we were worried about the letter, the USGA letter possibly coming in of, please don't come back to our U.S. Open locals. He enjoyed a lot more success on that day and many other days that I did, of course.
Well, you comported yourself quite well less than 2 weeks ago. I want to get to that in a moment, but let me start with some things as it relates to the tour. You guys spent a lot of time examining decisions made, what's going well, what isn't. Right now, what is or who is the most important, or what is the most important asset that the PGA Tour possesses?
I think my answer on this has evolved over the last 3 years, because I think I would have said the stars, the biggest names, Rory McIlroy's, Jordan Spieth, Justin Thomas is the most marketable names. Obviously, Scotty Scheffler has trended in a very good direction since that in the last 3 years. But the more I thought about this, Gary, I thought, and the more this kind of whatever you want to call this Cold War, hot war has played out, the more I think back on in general, the familiarity of the PGA Tour might be its biggest asset, in that I know Bay Hill, I know Innisbrook, I know the golf courses of, especially the West Coast swing in this first kind of quarter of the year. And it's familiar. I know where to find it. It's on NBC or CBS. I know the announcers. I know the history of these golf holes. And when you kind of have some different characters rolling through that, it doesn't really change the fact that it's part of somewhat of my routine, and has been part of my routine since I was a kid, to watch these tournaments and these golfers on these golf courses. And, Bay Hill's not my favorite golf course on tour, but I enjoy watching it every year because, you remember what it's like when you miss short right of 17, or if you pull it on 18, here's what could happen. And that familiarity, I think, is probably the tour's biggest asset at this point, in terms of, the sponsors that keep signing up because of that familiarity. People know what channel to find it on, and they have a very, very, very sticky audience. It's not a massive audience, but it is a sticky audience, and probably the best thing that the PGA Tour has going for it.
It's interesting. The other thing I would say is that golfers are naturally inclined to be nostalgic. We think about our own memories, our own moments that we hold on to, particularly the good ones. And I also think that fans are nostalgic about venues. You don't have to love it, like you said, but you're familiar with it. There's a comfort in it. You like to say, oh my gosh, they got to play that closing stretch at wherever. Let me ask you specifically about the players. And you guys are not going to gush about something simply because it may be close by. I think you guys as a group have fondness and appreciation for what it is. I think it's gotten better. What is your feeling about the value overall of that property?
The PGA Tour treats the players very differently, both the golf course, the actual in-person experience, and the television experience. They treat it very differently than any other event on the tour, right? There's less commercials on the telecast. It's a golf course that they have made a million tweaks to over the years, but the biggest thing is just how functional it is for fans in person. I mean, there's very little, some of the things we complain about a lot in golf, TIO and grandstands getting too close to green. They don't have that at the players, in part because it's purpose built to host big tournaments. Like, they have great viewing. I got to the playoff Monday morning, wasn't expecting a big crowd, and there was a massive crowd on 16T, but everyone there could see exactly what was happening there. One of the best tee shots on the golf course, one of the best holes to watch, the 16th. There's great viewing from tee literally all the way to the green. You can get behind the green. You can still have a view of 17. It's just, I've been to a lot of tournaments. I know you've been to a lot of tournaments. It is a special one. I mean, the way, I mean, they oversee the grass where people hang out near the entrance, near the Davis Love entrance, where they've got barbecue, they've got a bar there. That's some of the best golf grass you'll ever see. And that's just for fans to just stand on. And again, not every golf course is purpose built to host a massive, massive tournament like that one is. But I mean, it's the players is part of the reason why we are basically our hub is in Jacksonville. We, I've visited this tournament over the years, and kind of it's grown on us to say like, hey, this is actually a pretty decent place to live. We've kind of, as a group, come and gone over the years as family priorities have changed a little bit here. But I live in Jax Beach, and I'll be down here for a considerable part of the future.
I know you were sitting in the room when Jay Monahan did his kind of State of the Tour presser. One of the things, because they're now for-profit, they've got a for-profit arm, I'm most curious about what are you investing in and what potentially are you divesting in? What do you think would be the practical direction for SSG and for the tour to be looking at to make investments in?
It's a great question, and I think the one that jumps off the page to mostly everybody is the Ryder Cup, right? The PGA Tour and SSG, the 5 biggest events in men's golf, they don't own. They essentially loan out their talent to all of these events, and I don't think the Masters is going to be for sale anytime soon. I don't think the U.S. Open or the Open Championship. Maybe the PGA Championship, but the Ryder Cup seems to be the one that would be the most interesting in terms of can they? And listen, I'm not necessarily rooting for more private equity in golf and more complications,
right,
more money talk as it comes to golf. A lot of golf fans probably shouldn't care about a lot of this stuff, but there's some, shifting tides and shifting sands in this, kind of behind. And it's not been on the front burner because obviously the live stuff has been the heavy topic that's kind of weighted down other topics in golf. But the conversation that came up around money around the 2023 Ryder Cup is kind of indicative of how some players, a lot of players, I don't know exactly how they feel about how their likeness is being used in competition and all that stuff. So it makes my head spin. It's really not fun, but I think the main thing for SSG, and this, I'm not in that room, and I'm not one of the people making the decisions here, but the PGA Tour, how I view it, is one big commerce center, right? I mean, it's amazing, kind of the CEOs and the networking that comes from being at these events. We were at the AT&T Pebble Beach Pro-Am this year, and just the people you run into in that there's a lot of business incentive for a lot of the owners of SSG and investors in SSG to have relationships with a lot of the people that have relationships with the PGA Tour. I think it's kind of one big picture, like one big massive conference is kind of where I see a lot of the economic benefit of SSG, but you should not be asking me those questions. That's just me sitting at home kind of guessing as to where the value might come from.
Yeah, it's it'd be interesting to know if the PGA of America put a value on it, which I'm sure they have. And the other thing that if they did own it, what you can do, which they should already be doing because they've got an equity position in the Ryder Cup, the tour does, to be able to really do what they should have always been doing, which is make USA Golf just that and make the President's Cup and the Ryder Cup kind of like international basketball. We are one system. It would be fascinating if that ever came to be. And I think we're all wondering, where these people, Solly, who are part of SC, that's what they do. They buy and sell stuff. So we're all waiting for them to show us what they're going to buy and what they might sell as it relates to making the tour what they want to do, which is make money. All right, let me ask you about the climate at the players, around players. Media, I felt it to be not overly chippy, but there was the Colin Morikawa thing. I thought Scheffler, I don't know if it's entirely a byproduct of him being a little frustrated by results. Do you think that the climate between the media and the players is kind of in a weird place right now?
A little bit. I think, I don't know, the way I view some of this is, specifically to Morikawa, it was just an unnecessary fight to pick. I don't know who made the rule that players need to speak to media, the kind of an unwritten rule. Like, they don't technically have to speak to media when they're done. But
right.
If I was advising some of these players, I would say, your life's going to be a lot easier if you do, because if you don't, that's a story. And the next time you speak, you're going to have to speak on it. And then that's going to become a story. And Morikawa just kind of kept wanting to punt that one farther down the line, a fight that he just didn't need to fight. I mean, he had a close call at Bay Hill. He had a back nine 37. He probably should have won that golf tournament and didn't. I think part of your duty as a professional is to stand up there and say, you know what, I didn't execute down the stretch. I hope I'm better next time. Give us the cliches. That's the thing. I get kind of the understanding, the kind of the reaction of like, yeah, the questions are dumb. It's the same quotes every time. But hey, people, media people, newspapers and whatnot spend their company's hard-earned money to, get to be on site, to get a story out of it. And when they don't get a quote from you, even if it's not that most exciting, that makes it just that much more difficult of a sport to cover. It just kind of turns fans off too. I think players should be doing everything they can to make themselves more marketable and more appealing to fans. So one way to do that, I mean, look at how Phil Mickelson did that over the course of his career, right? Yeah. And, that's maybe not, he's treated a little differently over the last, say 3, 4, or 5 years, but he was friendly. He had good quotes, always gave people something. I always say, if Greg Norman can stand up and for all of Greg Norman's flaws, if he can stand up and do an interview after the 1996 Masters, like everybody after that needed to be able to stand up and answer some questions, especially at a signature event, Bay Hill, where you get a $2 million second place prize. Just stand up and answer a few questions. So I sense the chippiness. I don't really quite think it's deserved from the media standpoint. It's part of their job, to speak to media, to speak to fans and make themselves more appealing. Unless you just want to be known as a cold-blooded killer that, doesn't have any time for media, you're going to have to live with the fact that maybe some people out there are not going to be rooting for you in golf tournaments, which is not the end of the world for some of these guys. But I don't know. It just still seems like an unnecessary fight to pick, this one specifically.
We know that there's been a shift in terms of the audience that YouTube Golf is garnering now. You guys create a lot of content, but you also cover the sport intensely and thoroughly, where a lot of these content creators, they don't do what you guys do. So there's an interesting duality for your platform. Do you think players and agents value you guys more than they do whether it's mainstream media, because they can do branded content with you guys, with bellwether brands of which you have an association? Do you guys find yourself in a very enviable position? Because I'm just going to tell you, I think you do.
Yeah, it's interesting. We kind of started doing our content, now you can call it a business. It certainly didn't start out as a business. It was just a hobby that we did for fun about 11 years ago. And we kind of set out on our path before kind of YouTube golf in general took off in a different direction, right? It's I remember the first conversation we probably had back in 2017 about filming golf trips or filming us playing golf and putting it on YouTube. I literally said out loud, like, who would want to watch that? Like, I don't understand it. And a lot of people don't want to watch that. And I don't judge anybody that feels that way. But our kind of mission when we set out to make YouTube content was there's a storytelling element of this, right? It's not just us at our local course trying to, break 90, every single day. It's, we're traveling different locations, hopefully giving somebody a preview of what it's like to play at this golf course if they're scheduling a golf trip. Or if, sometimes we go to some private courses that are not publicly available. Like, it's kind of a bit of a fly on the wall experience to say, hey, I might not ever make it to so-and-so club in Australia. Here's what it would be like to play that place. And, there's another, since we've started making content, there's been a lot more YouTube channels that have popped up and have played, kind of ran the YouTube playbook to perfection to gain massive followings and a ton of collaborations with each other, and just kind of really letting their personalities drive a lot of the content. And people are big time into it. Now, we kind of view our YouTube section as part of what we do, but we kind of got our start with talking about pro golf, and kind of how I always looked at it. I was like, why would anybody care about my golf game? They'd much rather hear us talk about Rory and Spieth and the people that we follow week in and week out. But there's definitely an appetite for both. We kind of have our foot in both camps, and we definitely find the situations a little difficult at times to be in two places at once. But our first priority is covering the game from a podcast perspective. We've taken us a long time of kind of figuring out what our right mix is, to us feeling like we have it right this year to say we're a podcast company. And we also make video content And that's kind of helped the lens a little bit. It also hasn't helped that we're starting to get a little old, man. I think you had me on this show the first time 9 years ago, and I was living abroad. I was single, and all the decisions were very easy. All of it, a lot of us have kids now, and it's just a little bit more difficult to get up and run and go film and go travel and go play golf because priorities in life change. It's always easy to do a podcast from home, and I'm sure you could understand that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you were in Amsterdam and you were just trying to be heard. Now everybody hears you, and there's a weightiness to all your words. You guys, the whole team, and with that being said, you had a comprehensive conversation with Mike Wan, who is the CEO of the USGA at a time where they're trying to advance something that is very, very significant. Some may think it's too significant. Some think it's not significant enough in terms of the ball rollback. Where was your position when the Distance Insights report was released, and where is it now as somebody who now has a relationship with the leading ball manufacturer in the world?
It's I'm not sure what time you go off the air because I can talk about this topic for at least the next 2 hours if you want to. It's an inherently very complicated topic. Whereas my position on this has been for quite some time that overall the ball goes too far. And when I say that, naturally what people think is we're talking about the golf ball only, which I would say there's a ton of contributing factors to the ball going too far and the downstream effects that has on the game. I personally think driver wedge is not the most exciting way to watch professionals tackle architecturally significant golf courses. That's kind of what it comes down to. Now, I personally think that driver head size and the characteristics of 460cc drivers is a bigger driver of the problem necessarily than just the ball going too far. So while I'm a fan of what the USGA and RNA are doing in theory, I'm in the camp of I don't think it's enough. I think the biggest problem that comes with distance currently is the lack of risk that comes with swinging very hard. And we've seen ball speed on the PGA Tour, average ball speed. I don't have the numbers in front of me, but I think over the last 5 years, average ball speed on tour has gone up 4 miles an hour, just on average, which is a massive, massive lead.
Yep.
Because with forgiving drivers, players are almost at risk if they don't do some sort of speed training or kind of some sort of advantage to hitting the ball farther. They're falling behind their peers. Like it's less of a risk of doing that. And I think that is a very I'll say unsexy way. It sounds sexy, bomb it. Let's watch the guys hit it far. That's what people want to see. I'm always been of the stance that distance is relative. Your distance, it doesn't impress me if you can hit a ball 330. If you can hit it 330 and nobody else can hit it longer than 300, that's really impressive. If you can drive it 300 and nobody can drive it farther than 270, that's also impressive. It's just gotten to a point where a lot of the top distance guys, no matter where they put the tees, are finding a way to blow it past all the trouble that's supposed to be in their way with minimal downside, not risking it, blowing it off the planet to the point where I don't think I'm advocating for balata balls and persimmon drivers, but just asking yourself the question of would golf look a lot different? Would the tees look different? Would the test look a lot different if the players were playing persimmon drivers and balatas? My answer to that is yes. So that's all that to say. I think the game could be better and much improved with some different regulation around equipment. The current ball proposal, I'm a wait and see on. I don't know. I don't think it's enough, first of all. I mean, really, we're just talking about limiting the distance the ball is going, which I think should happen in theory. But my priorities would be more on what I mentioned earlier about the risk reward of wailing on a ball, swinging hard on it. I think that's a bigger issue than just the actual distance the ball goes. And again, like I could give you 50 reasons why, but I'm curious your reaction to all that.
Well, my reaction will come the next time we convene because this show does have to end. I will see you in a couple of weeks. And hopefully if you come to Charlotte for the PGA, maybe we can get you in here and we'll just tell these producers and directors, just go sit over there for a couple hours. Just roll. We'll tell you when we're done. Thank you for doing this.
Yep, we'll be at the PGA, so let's make that happen. And thanks for
having me. We will do
here.
that. All right, there is Chris Solomon, co-founder of No Laying Up. Quick break, come back, wrap it up right after this. We are back here tomorrow. A reminder that we will have Taylor Zarzour in studio the last half of the show. Also, Jim Crane, the owner of the Houston Astros and the guy who's been the driving force of the Houston Open. And this year, they've got Rory, they've got Scheffler. High times at the Houston Open. Jim loves golf. He owns the Floridian. And looking forward to talking with him about not only transitioning the golf tournament away from its previous site, taking it back to Memorial Park, which has incredible history. And this segment is brought to you by Pinehurst. When it comes to going and playing golf and having options, not only on the course but off, there's no place like the cradle of American golf. It is Pinehurst. Tonight, they will resolve Season 1 of TGL. And Atlanta is up 1-0. You know, Atlanta hadn't won a big title in a long time. It was the last time, well, we know the Falcons couldn't close. The Hawks, it's been a while. How about those Atlanta Flames, that old NHL franchise? This is a big night for the city of Atlanta. I will actually have my full thoughts on what TGL was this season. I said I was going to wait. I was going to watch the whole thing. And I will do that tonight, give some thoughts tomorrow. Hope you have a great Tuesday. For all of us here on 5 Clubs, we'll see you tomorrow.